Good evening, everyone. I will officially open this agenda briefing forum at 7:03 p.m. I will note for councillors that whilst these screens are not working, I've been told that it is streaming on the public website, so we are going to get started. So this evening is not a decision-making forum, it is a briefing on the agenda for the ordinary council meeting, which will be held next Tuesday, the 26th of May 2026. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to please ensure that comments are respectful to the council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in our public gallery. And please note this meeting is being live streamed. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Item 3 is announcements, and there are none this evening. Item 4 is attendance, and everyone is in the chamber. Item 5 is disclosures of interest. Any councillors have anything to disclose? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two declarations to make tonight. First one is for item 10.4.1, development application for proposed paddle courts additions to Bedford Bowling Club. I previously gave a deputation at the meeting of the 26th of the 8th, 2025, prior to my election as a councillor in support of the zoning change related to the development application. After discussing this with the governance team, I am satisfied that it is in partial interest. In addition to that, I'm also a member of the Bedford Bowling Club as well, where the DA is seeking a change. I'll be staying in the room for that one. In addition, item 10.4.2, proposed change of use to unhosted STRA lot 800 1 Mangini Street, Morley. My employer has a financial interest with a client which may have an association with the applicant. Again, after discussing with the governance team, I'm satisfied that this is an impartial interest and I'll be staying in the room.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's in relation to 10.5.1.1, which is food business assessment document. It's an impartial interest as I own a restaurant in the city. And it's similar grounds to what I mentioned in the committee earlier this month, which was that it doesn't have any impact on me. It's spread amongst all businesses within the city. So I will stay in the room.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, which is deputations. So this evening we have 10 in-person deputations, and I'll just explain how the process works. Each person who is presenting a deputation will be invited to come forward and speak at the microphone for up to 5 minutes. As we get close to the 5 minutes, I will let you know so that you can conclude your deputation. Once you have finished, the councillors may have some questions for you, so please remain up at the microphone. And please ensure that you state your name and suburb. So we will begin with deputations in relation to item 10.1.1, Leake Street subdivision. Can I please call upon Jeanette Gee?
Thank you. My name's Jeanette Gee. I live in Bayswater. In fact, right next to the proposed development, which is why I'm here speaking about it. I originally sent in an email with some concerns and some queries, not just concerns but questions about the proposed development, of which we've received no answers at all. And they are from the residents of 3A, B, C and D, Neville Street, plus 152 Leake Street, which are all the properties that bound the property that's going to be for sale. So because we've heard nothing back except thank you for your email, we really want some answers to some of the questions that we asked. I noticed in the council summary that it said that a lot of the zoning type questions or building type questions would come about when building applications are put in, and I understand that, things like the stormwater runoff and all of that, although we do have some serious concerns about those. But there are other things that I think should be answered. For example, I have asked by email and by phone to have a copy of the map that shows exactly which portion of the land is to be sold off, have received nothing back, And the map that's actually in the council documents today shows the whole Lot 3, which includes the car park, which I believe the car park and another section adjacent to the car park are not included. I find it really hard for residents to comment on something when we don't actually have any accurate information, and I think that it's unfair to expect us to. The second thing I'd like to raise is that last year Council gave us some assurances when we were here talking about the car park that was proposed for that land, that if anything else was going to happen, that we would be given an opportunity to talk about it. Now, we found out by accident that something is on proposal for that land right now, and the way we found out was to see the people drilling there and taking soil samples. I understand that it was up for public comment until the 5th of May, but how were we to know that? There was no sign on the land. I've seen that on other lands, a proposal for this, comments must be into the council by whatever. There was no letter dropped to residents, there was no email, there was nothing at all to let us know, which I find really, really disappointing considering what council said last year, that you would consult with residents and give us a chance to have a say. It really is a matter of trust, I think. We would like clarification on the zoning and special conditions for a dwelling unit built on the river end of the block, so that I believe, and I don't know because I did ask this as well, I believe there may be it might be subdivided into 4 blocks. So that would mean the block that is closest to the car park that faces the river, all the residences to the west, so that going back along the river going this way, are all 1 story, the houses that have to face the river. And when we bought our block, it was 1 story. I know people before us had tried to buy the block and get that changed. It wasn't able to be changed. I've spoken to another resident today who's recently built a house there. They also had the same problem. When we phoned up, we were told they were all going to be 2 story. So I want to know why that has changed. The river-facing blocks should be 1 story, in keeping with all the other blocks from there back down to the west of it. And I did ask for clarification of that in the email. I haven't heard anything back. The other thing that we wanted to ask was, we believe that a developer has been appointed, and we wonder whether an EOI was offered to develop the land, or if tenders were called, because we were told by phone that someone approached council and was just accepted. It seems a bit strange that this would be the process that council would use. We want to know whether it's the standard procedure for council-owned property developments in terms of advertising to the public, confirmation there's no conflict of interest, and confirmation that there's not a more profitable option for the City of Bayswater. That question was also not answered. So that's basically what I want to ask. Also, one other question that our group is interested in is, what's the proposed timeline for commencement of works and for the sale of the blocks? And that's my deputation.
Thank you very much. So deputations, the council have heard it. We don't respond to questions in this forum. There is an opportunity for public questions next week. However, our director has heard your concerns about not receiving responses prior to this evening. So if you have sent an email back, if you have sent an email to us, I will, the expectation will be that you will get responses to your questions by before next week's meeting.
Yeah, that would be great.
We'll ensure that. And any issues, you can contact me directly.
Yeah, that would be good, because last year you weren't at the meeting that we came to. You weren't able to be there for the deputation we gave, so you wouldn't have known that people did say here, yes, we will let you know if something's happening, and you can have a bit of it, we can have a discussion about it. I think it's really unfair, and I really think it's wrong to have a development go forward without any consultation when it says there has been an opportunity for people to be consulted.
Thank you for your deputation. Can I now call upon Babul Mardi?
Hello, everyone. So yeah, we live at 152 Leek Street, and we were also surprised about the whole development process. Because we're doing development, we got approval after 10 months of planning. The council made us put around 20 meters of glass balustrades, and they assured us, or I was assured, that there was nothing going to be in front of us. That's why we had the glass balustrades. And being where we are, we're facing the river, we're facing the park, it's obviously going to impact us and our new renovation or extension. So we were never told, otherwise we would have had other arrangements, especially if there's going to be neighbors next to us. And it's costing us a lot of money, and we have to abide by the rules. But we weren't told that there were neighbors, otherwise we would have done things differently. So yeah, that was, it's quite disturbing for us to know that. And second of all, the same thing as my neighbor said, about the process of how the land, you guys found a developer, it's agreed, we don't even know what's going on. Like, I think there should have been more transparency. We were happy to take a look at it and maybe adjust the plans accordingly. We're not here to oppose, obviously, the construction. However, maybe we can work together so that the whole neighborhood or the 5-6 houses around that block can still have that view. So for example, if we can reduce the height of the land to meet the laneway, so it's around 1.5 meters, that can help with the whole neighborhood to have better view to the river. I did send an email with 11 questions. I didn't get a response, all to do with our development and to our approval. So I'd really like something to discuss, or someone to discuss, preferably in person, so we can talk rather than email. I feel like it's more, personal. And we did request, we did oppose the car park and wanted something like a gym or an outdoor gym area, but no one came back to us. So on another hand, we still do like some sort of outdoor activity for the whole neighborhood to be implemented. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation. I'll just ask, and I'm sorry I didn't do this for the first deputy, but I will give it councillors. I'm just going to ask if councillors have any questions for you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for your deputation. So you mentioned that you sent an email with questions. When did you send the email?
It was that Sunday, the deadline.
The deadline was the 5th.
Yes,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
sent it before the deadline of the
5th of May?
Yeah, no, actually, I sent mine on the 5th of May, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent it to the default email. I sent it to Daniel. Yeah, those two, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? And I'll just ask councillors, did you have any questions for the first deputy? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll now call upon Guy Lanza.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor and councillors. First of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. Basically, I didn't have much time to plan anything, but I'd just like to back everything that was said tonight, in particular Jeanette, that had a very thorough background on everything. Very disappointed also. As I said, to me, this is like a plan part B of what we were here last year, and many of these mistakes or lack of communication has happened again, because we brought several things to your attention, and we were told that the communication, because it would improve, because there was no communication at all, and it just seems like we're doing the same thing again. Obviously, part A was to do with the car park and other bits and pieces that happened at the foreshore, at the Riverside Gardens. So very disappointed that pretty much here again tonight, going on about lack of communication, no response to emails, and just really just dumbfounded by all that sort of stuff. So I'm Jeanette, Mr. and Mrs. G are on one end, so they're at the end. I'm impacted in the middle. I'm on we're Neville Street, and then Babel's on the front. So I don't know how many councillors or whoever's been to this site, but I'm pretty much smack bang in the middle. So I don't know how many councillors or whoever's aware of the land levels, but it's all over the place. But as my neighbour Babel at 152 Leake Street said, it really does make quite interesting. And the way that land's going to be finished off at the levels, as I said, it can keep a lot of our views and also cause, if it is big retainer walls, can cause issues. So once again, they've all been stated in questions and we've had no answers. So, you know, obviously we can't do anything about progress and things like that, but, you know, we care for our community. And also, can someone please explain today or at the next meeting or whatever, what is the normal procedure in when the council sells off assets in terms of putting them out to tender and that? Because it just seems like this is all over the place. Would a sign not go up also to say with the proposed markings of this area to be done, or it just seems like everything was done under the table? As my neighbour did say, that we only found out about this once some soil taking was getting done. And that bloke there seemed a bit sheepish about things also. So what's the normal procedure for those sort of things?
So as I mentioned to the first deputy, this evening is for deputations.
Correct.
They're not public questions this evening. So if you've emailed that through, that will be responded to you.
Right.
So this
okay.
is just for deputations.
Yeah, I understand
Public
that.
questions are next week.
Right. Okay, well, yep, no problems.
Email guy, our joint email, that what question was on our joint email.
Yeah, okay. All right, no problems. That's about it, but thank you.
So, sorry, before you sit down, I'll just ask councillors if they have any questions for
No worries,
you.
thank you.
Any questions, councillors? I have a question. So you said that you're impacted by this. Can you explain to me exactly how you're impacted by the subdivision of the block?
Well, as I said, I don't know how many people have come down there, but I'm pretty much right in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'm probably at the lower point and right in the middle of, if there's 4 blocks, I'm pretty much going to, depending on how they're set out, but let's just say I'm right in the middle of the second and third, whichever way you want to put it, second and third block. So currently in front of me, there's a laneway, well, our driveway, and then the soil level pretty much goes up 1.5 metres, 2 metres. So if a 2-storey house went on that, it would just be towering over me. It's hard to explain because there's sort of like, you got Leake Street over here, where Neville Street runs that way, and we've got our own laneway that runs down here.
I'm familiar with
Yep.
the area.
And then, so, I mean, my house is 2-storey, but obviously if I've got a 2-storey setting up on 1.5 metres, 2 metre land, it's just going to block everything off, the sun, everything. Yeah, so obviously that's going to impact quite a lot.
Sorry.
So
So,
there'll be a massive retainer wall there also.
so you have a 2-storey house.
Yeah.
But the house is next to your 1-storey.
As Mrs. G explained before, she's the N1, and when they built their place in 2005, I think, obviously they could only build it to 6 metres height, so they've got a 1-storey house. So I've got a 2-storey house, but the N1 is she's pretty much level with the ground. Okay, so as you come up our little laneway, it's like nearly 2 metres, 1.5 metres. I haven't measured it, 1.5 metres,
Yeah.
whatever. So that's why we're interested to see what's going to happen with that.
And when did you build your house?
I didn't build it, but pretty much mine was around 2005 also.
Okay, so there wasn't any restriction on the...
On the N1
on
there was, not on mine.
Not on yours?
No,
Okay, so
but-
I'm not familiar with the restrictions, so I need to look into that. But,
All 1-storey.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And so you're saying if a house is built there on the residential land, your views would be impacted?
Pretty much on that side, yeah. So I can see all the park. However, that's as my neighbour at 152 was mentioning, that if that land was lowered a little bit, that would be beneficial to everyone. Because as you said, you visited the site, so it sort of comes up, then goes down towards the last house, 3D, where Mr. and Mrs. G live. Their house is level with the land, if that makes sense. With a
Yeah,
sort-
no, I
Yeah, so
understand.
mine, when you walk out of my front door,
Yeah.
we've got our laneway, and then there's a big sort of hill that runs.
And that hill was there when you bought your house?
Yeah,
It's always been?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I also have one question. When you bought your place, were you aware that the lot next to you that we are talking about is not part of Riverside Gardens? It is not a public open space? Were you aware of that?
And it's quite funny because when I bought that place in 2000, 6 years ago, on the open day of when it was up for sale, the first thing I asked the question to the salesperson said, "Who owns that?" And I got so many. I was told it was the Swan River Trust or something, and then I bought the place, asked around, I got told it was Water Corp. Got told basically everything, and then found out it was the council once. So yes, I was well aware it was not privately owned, but in terms of I didn't do my own research in terms of that. I just asked the real estate agent. On the day I went and for the first time open, and then over time I got told different answers. I even got told the mayor of Durazio owned it many years ago. I don't know what's true and what's not, but yeah, over time we found out the council owned it.
Yeah, but were you aware that it's not part of the parkland?
Correct, as far as I know, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation.
Thank you.
I'll now move on to item 10.4.1, development application, proposed paddle courts, additions to Bedford Bowling Club. And can I please call up Jamie Forsman?
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, city officers and attendees. My name is Jamie Forsman and I'm representing Outback Paddle, the applicant for the proposed paddle courts at Bedford Bowling Club. We're here tonight for the development application for the site. Outback Paddle has been working closely with the Bedford Bowling Club and the city for the past year and a half, and bring this forward a proposal that fits appropriately within the existing sporting precinct. During that process, the proposal has been supported by detailed acoustic modelling, traffic assessment and design review. The purpose of that work has been to make sure the facility can operate responsibly while activating current unused space within the established community sporting hub. I'd like to thank the city officers for the work undertaken in assessing the application and responding to the community feedback. The report is comprehensive and we appreciate the time taken to consider the technical studies and the issues raised through the consultation process. I'd also like to acknowledge the Bedford Bowling Club, specifically President Neil Dwyer, who's here tonight, and Treasurer Jim O'Brien. Neil, as I mentioned, is here and he's tonight and in support of the project as well. The committee members perform their roles voluntarily and contribute significant amount of time and effort to the club and the broader community. Their work plays an important role in supporting recreational opportunities for residents in the cities of Bayswater. Paddle is relatively new in Australia, but is not new to the city of Bayswater. With the approval of this project, the city has the opportunity to continue supporting the growth of an accessible, inclusive and social sport. For members of the wider community who may be less familiar with it, paddle is a racket sport often described as a mixture between tennis and squash. It's easy to learn, played in small groups, and attracts a wide range of participants, including families, juniors, older residents, and people new to racket sports. Our goal is to integrate the club with the club and contribute to a welcoming community sporting facility. Bedford Bowling Club already provides bowls, and paddle would add another accessible activity to that mix, helping the club remain active, relevant, and sustainable over the long term. Importantly, the independent technical reports confirm that the development complies with environmental protection noise regulations and that surrounding road network and parking supply are capable of accommodating the expected activity. We recognise that the key concerns raised by some members of the community relate to noise and the proposed operating hours. We take those concerns seriously, and particularly where nearby residents, including residents of the retirement village, have asked questions about player noise, patron activity, music, the modelling assumptions and the technical inputs and outputs in the environmental noise assessment. The operating hours requested remain 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on a Sunday and public holidays. Keeping these hours is important for the viability and accessibility of the facility. They allow the courts to be used by working families, local residents, and community users outside of standard work and school hours, while still operating within the noise limits assessed by the acoustic report. For that reason, we have our acoustic engineer, Marty Walpenis, here tonight. He's best placed to answer any technical questions on the acoustic report, including the modelling methodology, assumptions used, relevant noise criteria, and site-specific inputs and outputs. Most importantly, he can speak to the conclusion that the proposed operating hours can be supported from an acoustic perspective. In simple terms, the design proposed for Bedford is acoustically acceptable. We remain committed to working closely with the city, the club, and the local community to ensure the facility operates responsibly and contributes positively to the area. Thanks for the time and consideration.
Thank you for your deputation. I'll ask councillors if they have any questions. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Jamie, for your deputation. 2 months ago, I believe you had a DA go through in terms of the Noranda Sporting Complex,
Yes.
and I believe that there was some discussion around the operating hours of that application, and you were seeking the same hours for that one, but that was dropped from, I believe, from a 10 p.m. to a 9 p.m. just in response to those community concerns. Did you take that into consideration when applying for this development application with those hours, operating hours that you're looking at? And did you think that perhaps potentially a 9 p.m. finish time may help satisfy some of those community concerns? Is that something that you considered?
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks for the question. I think definitely consider that. And I think just where the courts are situated in comparison to when the Noranda situation is really different. The courts are quite vastly away from the closest residents. So I think it's a very different sort of acoustic assessment. And I think Marty can touch on that and give you a bit more detail and comfort around that. So definitely, yeah.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Pittaway.
Just one quick question. Jamie, thanks for your deputation. Looking at the report, is it with the gate out the front, are you upgrading that gate for the Bedford Bowling Club?
Yes.
On your behalf, you are doing
Yeah,
that?
there'll be the walkway gate that will be upgraded, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much for your deputation. The next person I'll call upon is Marty Walpenis.
I know I'm not that exciting. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors. My name's Marty Walpenius, acoustical engineer from the city, Perth City. The deputation I have is just to give some background information to the acoustical assessment we've prepared for this site. And so what I was going to do is just cover the main points, really. As far as the paddle court noise goes, what we did is we based those on real-world assessments, real-world measurements we took late last year at another centre. What we found was the noise from paddle courts is not a constant sound. It's intermittent. It's there for some of the time and not for some of the time. Because of that, it's not a steady noise, and because of that, we use the assessment parameters like L1 and Lmax to quantify the noise from that site. What we did find was that the main noise sources are the actual bounce, the sound of the bounce of the paddle ball, whether it's on the ground or off a racket. And also it's the sound of the participants. They can yell, they can raise their voice, they can comment to each other, and that's just similar to what you find in tennis. We had in our report, we compared it to something like basketball, because basketball noise is perceived as being of a more intense type of noise. And the process we followed was to look at, well, how does basketball noise get assessed? And the assessment is really based on complaints received by local governments and how the Department of Environment and Water Regulations have interpreted that. So that's the process we use to look through the noise emission. the intermittent nature of the sounds, I suppose the prominence those sounds create, the extra degree of noise compared to steady sounds. And that's how we came up with our assessment. What we find with the site down at Bedford is that it's effectively located in the, if you were going to put an activity, it would be hard to find a better location because it's basically equidistant from a lot of neighbours. You've got 85 metres to the houses to the east and the west, 95 to the northeast and the southeast, and the other houses are roughly 100 metres or more. So the buffer distance in that area works very effectively for this site. Paddle courts inherently have a back solid face, normally glass, as well as short side walls. And though that combination of materials is sufficient, along with the buffer distance, to give us enough noise control that we easily meet the noise regulations around the area, or the assigned levels from the noise regulations. So as far as the other activity, which I thought I'd just give some background on, is we hadn't really discussed car park noise. So we had looked at that, but what we found again was it's not a very significant noise source. Car park noise is a function of, or the main noise sources in a car park are things like the doors closing, the engine starting, and the actual car driving off. Now, given that we're close to quite a busy road with over 15,000 vehicles a day, we're finding even between 9 and 10 o'clock at night, there's over 375 cars on the nearby road. So that gives us a bit of an indication as to how cars or car noise in the area is prominent or is evident. Now, again, we have assessed the noise from things like the car doors closing, the engines, etc. We've assessed those against the assigned levels, and again, they've shown to be compliant. Again, what's working for us is 20 or 30 metres minimum distance from the nearest car parking bays to the houses, and quite often a lot more. So that was really some of the background information we've put together on this. And if you, this is really the extent of the deputation I've got here today, but very happy to take any questions or discuss any points if the councillors would like. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. I'll just ask if there are any questions. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Marty, for your deputation. Just the same question that I had for Jamie in regards to the operating hours, especially in that about 9 to 10 p.m. period.
Sure.
Just compared to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that Naranda Sporting Complex.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I did the assessment for that one as well.
Oh, excellent. Just if you can share some of your thoughts on I guess that's operating time, and if you consider that reduction from that 10 p.m. to 9 p.m. in line with Naranda approval?
Okay, look, thank you for the question. As far as the limitations of noise, I tend to refer back to the regulations. They're quite specific in what they say. What they say is between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday, you're allowed to generate colloquially the most noise of any development. And then if you extend past those periods, such as 7 p.m. to 10 p.m, you have an ability, or you're allowed to make less noise. You have more restrictions, as well as if you're on Sundays, you have similar restrictions as the evening restrictions in some cases, in other cases not. And then the most stringent results, or the most stringent requirements, are after 10 p.m. at night and before 7 a.m. in the morning. 7 a.m. is an interesting period of time because you start to get a lot of traffic on the nearby roads, but the standards say, or the legislation says 7 a.m, and I don't think that Mr. Vorsman's wanting to operate before 7. But your question about 9 to 10 p.m. at night, I wouldn't recommend or advise operation after 10 p.m, but I don't see that there's any particular trigger or reduction that you need to employ between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. So that's how I'd say.
Another follow-up question, Madam Mayor, thank you. Just in reference to some of the receivers that you have here, I just know that a lot of it is residential. And this might be a question for Mr. Forsman as well, but I just know that the Filipino Club is next door, or
that's
much
right.
closer to the paddle courts,
Yep.
proposed paddle courts. Just seeing if there was any engagement from your end or the proponents' end in regards to noise there, just given that they might have operations after hours and might be subject to that. Is that something that was considered as part of the proposal?
There's two issues there. Is firstly, how much noise does the paddle court make that may cause upset at the club? And secondly, how much noise does the club make in conjunction with the paddle court that they collectively make a lot of noise? I think am I understanding your question? Is that how? Yes, okay. Or what I can do is I can just quickly refer back to the report and let you know that the amount of noise that the paddle court makes would not register as far as the club goes. And in the sense that they're not classified as a noise sensitive receptor, not like somebody at home sitting down watching TV or on the phone or quietly reading or whatever. So that's the first point. The second point is the club itself would have its own limits as far as noise emission goes, and the nature of the sounds they generate is very different to the nature of the sounds that the paddle court makes. So I wouldn't see that there's a lot of overlap or reinforcing of sound between the two venues, such that collectively they make a lot more noise than either one of them alone does make. I'd also classify the Bowls Club into that same category as well. Collectively, the three sites, I just can't see that they would make so much noise that they'd start to approach the assigned levels.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Pittaway.
Yes, thanks, Marty. I just wanted to ask, one of the written consultation or deputations tonight, in their point 1 says, under Regulation 9, impulsive noise must attract a 10 decibel penalty. Instead, the consultant applies only a 5+ decibel modulation adjustment based on guidance written for basketball, not paddle. So I just wanted to challenge you on that. And obviously the diagrams were being given with the buffers, just highlighting, obviously where the noise does obviously filter out to. If that was applied, would you still be satisfied that that would still be within those guidelines and not impact those houses?
That's a good question. I'd say that it will come very close to those. If you applied the more stringent interpretation, you'd either meet the limit or you'd get within 1 dB, which is not all. I will confess that there is an error in the report, and the error in the report, I've made our assessment more difficult than it needs to be. So, for instance, on page 13, table 3, for the house at 140A Rosebery Street, I've given it an assigned level of 52 decibels. It should be 56, and the assigned level for the L-max noise of 57 should be 63. So the amount of noise that that site can accept is like 6 decibels more than I've allowed. So I've made Mr. Forsman's job harder than it needs to be, but nevertheless it still complies even with the, and especially if we look at a more stringent interpretation of impulsiveness, it would still work. Now, also the reason I went down the path of doing what I did was that because DeWer did produce that white paper, so it wasn't just a random report. They sort of put their neck out on the chopping block over it, and they based it on previous complaints to councils from basketball noise. And we all know the basketball noise I would classify as being of a more intense nature than what we have with the paddle court.
Sorry, just on that, would that be based upon one court versus, 4
Multiple
courts?
No. Well,
Multiple.
our assessment was for 4 courts, all active at the same time.
Comparing that to one court of basketball, or?
From the look, I'm just thinking back on it. I believe that they had measurements and testing at single courts, at double courts, and at four sets of four courts. So they did that.
Yep, no worries.
Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you very much for your deputation.
Thank you, Ms. Madam Mayor.
So we now move on to item 10.4.2, proposed change of use to unhosted short-term rental accommodation units. And I'll ask Matthew Stokes to come forward.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and councillors. My name is Matthew Stokes, residing in Morley and also being the PNC President of Morley Primary School. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight about item 10.4.2, the proposed change to use for 7 unhosted short-term rental accommodation units at 1 Mangini Street. I'm here tonight to respectively object to the proposal to change 7 units of 1 Mangini Street to Morley to unhosted short-term rentals, because to many people, this might look like a simple accommodation application, but to the people who live here within the community and to those struggling to find secure housing, it feels like something much bigger. This proposal asks Council to approve 7 unhosted short-term rental units within a 9-unit development that was originally designed as specialist disability accommodation with accessible features intended to support people living with disabilities. Whilst I understand that 2 units may now have long-term SDA tenants, 7 are still proposed to become short-term accommodation. These weren't built as holiday apartments or tourism accommodation. They were designed with a purpose to provide accessible housing for many people who genuinely need it. At a time when accessible housing is already difficult to find, changing the intended use of these homes raises serious questions about the priorities and about who our housing stock is really serving. The community has already spoken very clearly on this. During consultation, 21 submissions were received, and every one of them raised concerns or objections. This shouldn't be dismissed. There are local residents who live in the area, who operate within the community day to day, attend the adjoining Morley Primary School, and who care deeply about the safety of their children and the future of the neighbourhood. People raise concerns about the location being directly near Morley Primary School and outside of school hours facilities. Others spoke about parking, traffic, noise, neighbourhood amenities, and the reality of having multiple short-stay units operating without any on-site host or supervision. I think that those concerns are fair. With regards to the primary school, why weren't the children given the same privacy as the owners of number 3 Mangini Street have received? With highlight windows on their sides, the school should have had something along the lines of screens to restrict visibility out of the windows more than the perforated panels that are currently there, or panels that allow angled views out but still letting light in. The management plan does try to reassure council through guest screening, house rules, parking controls and remote management, but respectively, those measurements rely heavily on guests doing the right thing and management responding after the issues arrive. Having 7 separately operated short-term units with guests coming and going, staying anywhere from a single night to several months, create a very different environment from those made up of permanent tenants. A keypad and an online booking system cannot replace the accountability and sense of community that comes from neighbours knowing who one another is and who are invested in the place that they live. The planning, in my view, is not only about whether something can be approved, it's also about whether it should be approved, particularly in the context of the surrounding community and long-term impact of that decision. I understand the officer report notes that the site is within an activity centre and may align with the draft STRA policy. But even the draft STRA policy recognises the importance of protecting residential housing supply and maintaining balanced communities. And right now, balance is exactly what many people feel we are losing. Perth continues to face rental pressure and housing shortages. Families, seniors, young people and vulnerable residents are struggling to find a portable, stable accommodation. So it's difficult for many in the community to understand why residential housing, particularly housing specifically designed to be accessible, would be redirected towards short-term stays. This doesn't make sense. I appreciate that the applicant has expressed the intention to prioritise families and future NDIS tenants, but respectively, intention is not a guarantee. What we are being asked to approve tonight is a 7 short-term stay accommodation units. And once that approval is given, the immediate result is fewer homes available for long-term living. That has consequences. There are also broader sustainability considerations. Short-term accommodation naturally creates higher turnover, more cleaning, more servicing, more linen changes, more transport, more waste, and more than a stable residential occupation.
Mr Stokes, you've got 30 seconds.
Sure. The proposal clearly states that all cars must park within the designed apartment bays or guest bays, but clearly at the same time states, if your car is leaking oil, please park on the street, which, however, is a clear way. Councillors, this is not about being against visitors, tourism or temporary accommodation. It's about balance. It is about protecting neighbourhood stability and the safety of children, preserving housing for long-term residents and making planning decisions that reflect the needs of the community. I respectfully ask the Council to place community wellbeing, housing security and long-term planning outcomes first and to review this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your deputation. I'll just ask councillors if they have any questions. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes, for coming tonight. I have a few questions. I'm trying to understand some of your concerns, if I can. First of all, do you live around the building?
I don't live in the immediate confines, but I live within close proximity, and I obviously have children that go to the school, which is on the adjoining fence.
Thank you. And that is the issue I'm trying to better understand. You were talking about safety concerns.
Yeah.
By replacing those units with, let's say, Airbnbs. What are those safety concerns exactly? Are you saying that there may be dangerous people coming to use those Airbnbs?
That's definitely a potential. Also, the way that the building was designed, it doesn't give the students or the staff or the families that go to that school any sense of privacy, in the sense that you've got a permeable fence that directly joins up, and you'll see there's some pictures that another person's going to be speaking about later on the back of their agenda. There's actually slatted fences that gives occupants of that premises direct contact with students or kids that were at the school. It also has what I would class quite minimal screening from the residents. As you can see that there's perforated aluminium panels there. It doesn't stop the visibility of the school oval and the community area. You can see there's pictures that are right up against the unit, and you can see how close kids are to that property. You can also see when we're standing in the basketball court, which is near on about 150 to 200 metres away, that it still has quite an impact within the school zone. And a lot of the families are concerned around the wellbeing of the students and the people that go within the school because of those reasons as well.
So that is the school, right? The basketball
Yes, correct.
court?
Yes.
So that's the distance.
That's the school, and they've also got the school oval. So that green area between the basketball court and the premises is all common school oval, which they use for many hours throughout the day.
So I'm still trying to understand. So why do you think those who may use Airbnbs may be more dangerous than those who just rent apartments or units?
You've got the options of high transient turnover, so you've got a lot of people coming and going. There's no safeguards in place. There's no one on site to manage it if something was to happen. You've got people coming and going. There's no accountability for who has an account. I can sign up an account and I can have XYZ person come and use that account and stay at that property. There's no safeguards there for the premises. It's noted that you have to vacate all guests out by 10 o'clock, but there's no safeguards to prove that that's happening at night either. There's just a lot of open gaps within the policy that are just not being addressed, in my opinion.
Thank you. I'm not trying to be hard. I'm really trying to understand the point. Do you have any evidence or research showing what you're saying? Because this is the first time I hear that.
So-
People who use Airbnbs might be more dangerous than
I
people.
don't have evidence on that, no.
That's the feeling that they might be more dangerous.
Correct, yeah. And it's coincidental that in the last 10 to 12 weeks of school, there's also been paraphernalia that's been found within the confines of the school oval, particularly the sandpit that you can see the kids playing with in one of the rear pictures there. It's sure it might be coincidental, but it all seems to be becoming, rather apparent.
And with regards to the screening from the school, would asking the school, putting something along the fence to block, if this is your concern, is this something that is also an option?
But it's I know you're talking about the fence, but you've also got windows that have got direct view into the school, which have only been filtered by a perforated aluminium screen as well. You've got balustrading at the rear of the property that when you look at one of the units on the opposing side to the school, they've got higher balustradings and it's frosted glass. When you look at the unit closest to the school, they've got a lower balustrading and it's clear glass. So the people that have been subjectified to be able to see into the rear unit, they've got the options so they can't see into that premises. But then the units that are directly in contact with the school have open contact and that full visibility to be able to see and do whatever they want within the visibility of the school as well.
Thank you.
No problems.
Councillor Pittaway.
Thank you, Matthew, for your deputation. I just have a couple of questions myself, and I'll play a bit of devil's advocate. So when the children are in that common area outside, because Morley Primary has a gated
It does, yes.
premises there, right?
Yep.
So much higher than the gating or the fence that is in that common area.
Correct, yeah.
So in that sense, I'm just trying to understand if you're staying in that apartment, you're still saying that someone from any one of those units could see into, like you mentioned, 250 metres?
Yeah, well, obviously the direct concern is with the fencing. It's the people that are playing within the confines of that fence. There is, and I'm not saying that everyone's ill intent or anything like that, but people could be standing behind the solid portion of that fence. They could be talking to children. They could be doing whatever they want. And
But the general public could do that anyway.
Correct, but then there's a filter. If they're standing on a perforated or a chicken wire fence outside of the school, the teachers will be able to clearly see a person that's standing there. Whereas if they're standing out of obstruction or out of eye view of the teachers, and there are teachers out on the oval for that, but they can't see behind every wall, hence why all the trees are lifted up so that there's no blockages or visibility
So that's
issues
the
around
other
the school.
question I had, accountability. You asked accountability of the units. What's the accountability? And I'm playing devil's advocate here.
That's fine.
Because, obviously safety of children is paramount, but obviously what's the accountability for teachers when the kids are out on that common area? So if is it sort of like recess, lunchtime?
Yes, and
afternoon
obviously while
time?
they're doing sports, in the mornings, they do a running club, so they're out there for 30, 45 minutes.
And how many
throughout the
teachers
morning.
would likely to be on the oval at that point?
Generally, I'd probably suggest 1 to 2.
Okay, so that could be increased possibly, or
It could be,
potentially?
but also why does that fall back to the school to increase staffing for security when it could be mitigated in other ways as well?
Understand. Second question I had was that I noticed there's a sand pit.
Yes.
That looks recently.
We just recently topped it up with sand. That's why it looks fresh or new, but
Yeah.
we just topped it up with sand
So
as
that was
well as the
always
other
there?
sand pits. Yes, it is, yep.
That was all those. Do you have any further plans to develop that with?
I'm not sure that's between the school and Department of Education, so.
Okay, all right, yep, okay, thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions? I've just got some questions, Mr. Stokes.
Sure.
So I'm also trying to understand the safety concerns.
Yep.
Because when I look at this, and I'm on Mangini Street,
Yep.
I can see straight into the school.
Yep.
So in terms of visibility,
It's not necessarily about the visibility of standing on common area or the street. It's the option of hiding behind certain safeguards and then seeing in whilst you're out of view of other people. Like you can stand on Manginian Street and see in, I get that. But people will then see you standing on a street and looking in. You can stand behind a screen wall, especially during the day. You can do whatever you want in the building premises. There is no safeguard for the children or anything like that because people outside can't see in, but people inside can clearly see out.
okay. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is I could sit in my car
Yep.
on the street or in
Yes.
the car park of
You could.
the Morley Rec and I
Yep.
can see straight inside.
Yes.
You can't see me inside my car, but I can see all the children
Yep.
and be doing whatever it
Yep.
is. So I guess that's my point. And regardless of whether it was short-term accommodation or disability accommodation or regular residential accommodation,
Yep.
that could still be
It could,
an
but there's also
issue
a lot
for
more
anybody who lives
accountability
there.
when you've got a rental agreement or you've got a purchase of a house. There's a lot more accountability as to who owns that house, who resides in that house.
How is there, if I bought that, a unit there, and I was an unsavoury person,
Yep.
where's the accountability?
Well, in the sense of if something was to happen, they know who is in that premises. Do you know what I mean? They know, if something was to go to the police, they can easily get the details of the occupier or the owner of that house. Whereas if it's Airbnb, you could have, I could sign up right now
But
with a
there's
phone number and an
gaps in
email
the
address.
system is what you're saying. There's gaps in the identity.
What's to stop me signing up on Airbnb using a generic email that I just created, going in or signing up and then going to my friend, here you go, there's the keys, it's yours for a week. I'm just saying,
so-
like, it's just
so
that the whole
for that
unknown. There's no
issue-
security around who's going into the premises or no safeguards. So.
So, but there's no security in terms of if I was a renter and my friends came over, or
Yes, but then it would still fall back to one person at least. Like if you've got that, it'll still fall back to the person that's on the rental contract.
okay. And in terms of you spoke about the visibility from the upper
Yep.
thing. Has this PNC spoken to the school about an option of planting trees or hedging or
We have,
something along
obviously,
there?
the school's currently looking into options to plant established trees, but obviously with a small school, you know, we've got, 220 students this year. That comes at quite a large financial burden to the school to be able to put in established trees that will like instantly give impact or blocking, you know, if you were to plant a tree that this big, sure, it'll only be $50, but it's also going to take 5 or 6 years to reach a canopy height that will actually do any different.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you very much for your
Nice,
deputation.
thank you.
Can I please call Tamina Stokes to speak?
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors. My name's Tamina Stokes from Morley Residents. I respectfully object to the officer's recommendations supporting the proposed changes to 1 Mangini Street, Morley, to predominantly unhosted short-stay accommodation rentals. My understanding is that the development was originally designed, approved and constructed as specialty disability accommodation, providing important inclusive housing within the community. Accommodation of this nature is particularly valuable during the current housing crisis, supporting elderly residents and people with additional support needs while contributing to long-term housing stability and community connection. The current application proposes converting 7 of the 9 units into longer-term unhosted accommodation, short-term accommodation. In my view, this represents a significant departure from the site's intended purpose and introduces impacts that have not been adequately addressed. My primary concern is that the site's direct interface with Morley Primary School, the development overlooks the school through open slat fencing and maintains direct visual and physical connection to areas used daily by more than 200 children. Children are a vulnerable population and require additional consideration in planning and risk management processes. While the applicant refers to possible future intentions for this site to refer back to SDA, that does not remove the need for appropriate safeguards during this unhosted short stay application period. I do not believe the application demonstrates an adequate, enforceable or child-conscious management framework suitable for the property directly adjoining the primary school. In particular, I question whether the proposal satisfies the council's own policy requirements regarding antisocial behaviour management and impact on adjoining neighbours. Important preventative safeguards do not appear to be proposed, including on-site management or security presence, physical screening measures to limit direct interaction or viewing between guests and school grounds, and clear operational procedures for managing guest behaviour adjacent to the school environment. I also note that the application document states management plans are to be provided to adjoining occupiers, with the school identified as a direct neighbour. Will the children and the staff all receive this management guideline policy? Further concerns arise from the practical enforceability of complaints and compliance processes for unhosted STRAs. The WA Parliamentary Inquiry into Short Stay Rental identified that local governments often rely heavily on neighbours to collect evidence and repeatedly report issues before enforcement actions occur. This approach is particularly inappropriate adjacent to schools, where children should not bear the burden of responsibility for foreseeable risks. How will the children aged 4 to 11 follow the complaint management policy without a phone or a laptop, since a phone number and a website are the only options to raise concerns listed in the management policy? Best practice safeguarding requires risks to be proactively prevented and managed by operators, regulators before problems occur, especially in regards to children. In my view, this proposal does not yet demonstrate sufficient preventative safeguards for a site directly adjoining a primary school. I am also concerned that the city's draft STA policy includes a school area within the proposed unhosted STRA precinct surrounding the Galleria, despite other residential areas recently being excluded from these hubs. Councils should reconsider whether land directly adjoining the primary school is an appropriate location for a predominantly unhosted short stay accommodation such as 1 Mangini Street. Children are legally required to attend school, and the school is required legally to provide outdoor recreation and play opportunities. The students are expected to use this oval and surrounding outdoor spaces during school hours, and their right to safe outdoor play should be appropriately protected and prioritised. If the applicant cannot demonstrate appropriate management systems and safeguards for sensitive land use, then I do not believe this proposal should be approved, even on a temporary basis. As an alternative, I encourage the owners of 1 Mangini Street to consider accommodation models involving longer term or periodic leasing, which would provide greater oversight, improved housing stability, and reduce the impacts associated with high turnover accommodation.
Ms Stokes, you've got 20 seconds left.
For this reason, I respectfully request that the council refuse this application unless appropriate mitigation risk measures, management systems and child-focused protections can be clearly demonstrated. I did also include some pictures. I just wanted to say that obviously the building has been approved, okay? So 3 Mangini Street, if you look down to, I think it's figure 3, has been approved with highlight windows, frosting, which provides a safeguard for this property and for also the 42 Vera Street behind. So if there is a concern that is raised because of antisocial behaviour, an adult can call up, can go on their phone or go on a laptop and raise these complaints, whereas the children on the other side were not afforded the same protections. I know it still goes through council, it's been approved for building, but the children have not been afforded the same level of privacy as the surrounding neighbours. And then if something does to happen, then what is required is that we've only got a phone number or a website that the children can access. When they're at school, weekdays, you know, they're not allowed phones, they don't have laptops. How do they have the developmental capacity to be able to understand that there's been some kind of issue at the property and then...
Thank you for your deputation. We've got the gist of that. That's 6.5 minutes.
Sorry.
So I'll just ask councillors if they have any questions for you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for coming tonight as well. I do have a few follow-up questions.
Sure.
Again, just to clarify the main points. I think around the safety, this is the point that I want to clarify most. So you mentioned that you see a foreseeable risk, is what I took from your...
Yes.
So the risk is by having adults watching behind the screen at kids playing in the oval of the school. Is that the risk that you are referring to? Or you're afraid that they will jump over the fence?
No.
So what is the risk?
It's not, the danger is present no matter sort of who's there. My concern is that 3 Mangini Street has got, they don't have visual, so the property has highlight windows, has frosting on 3 Mangini side and the other properties. So there is no visual risk associated with these properties because they don't have direct access to those properties, okay? The design has allowed for that. So if there is some kind of antisocial behaviour happening, they can make a phone call or they can access the website in order to make that complaint, which then gets recorded and then comes to the council to be able to determine whether the unhosted short stay is appropriate in this setting. Now, the children on the other side, while the building has been approved, it has been approved with, it's got a different facade. It has got full windows that allow for direct view of the children, which isn't being given to the, if you look at picture 3, compared to all the others. So the other adjoining neighbours have been given privacy. The school has not. So what happens if there's something that is antisocial, right?
What antisocial behaviour you mean? What can happen behind those windows?
Anything, any kind of complaint that you would like to make visually, any kind of antisocial behaviour. And what I'm saying is the onus has been put on the children to be able, they visually can see that, and then they have no capacity because of their age, because they don't have access to a phone and because they don't have a laptop. The management process does not give them the capacity
I understand.
to make a complaint.
But what kind of antisocial... I understand.
To register that complaint. The
I understand.
onus is on the child who is not developed to do
Ms.
that.
Stoke, I understand. I'm just asking what kind of antisocial behavior you're referring to.
I don't-
Antisocial behavior is a term that we use for different behaviors.
Yeah.
What kind of behavior you are afraid that will happen behind those windows in that building that will affect the kids playing in the Oval? I'm really trying to understand because I see that you're very concerned.
Yeah.
What are you afraid that will happen behind those windows?
It's not that I'm afraid. I'm just saying that the council requires that someone for unhosted short stay, they have to provide a management plan for antisocial behaviour so that the adjoining neighbours have the capacity to be able to make those complaints. What I'm saying is the children, the actual broader council policy for the STR policy, which is under review at the moment, has included the school area and hasn't actually put any extra considerations in for children. Everything that involves a school, a childcare centre, has additional protections because of the vulnerability of children. Like, there are so many reports about additional protections for children. And if you look at what the protections have been given to the neighbours versus the protections that have been given just in the structure of the building, we actually have less protections which have been approved. And I understand that the building is there, but what happens is now that we're moving to unhosted short stay, if there is any antisocial behaviour, and it's the council who has said that the owner and the manager of this unhosted short stay needs to provide a capacity for the neighbours to be able to make complaints about antisocial behaviour, about any issues with the property.
I understand.
The children do not have access to that.
I understand.
So the policies for the council need to be adjusted in order to provide, like we talk about waste management, we talk about lots of other things.
Yeah.
There needs to be something specifically related to children and their inability. There needs to be further protections that they need because they don't have the capacity to voice these concerns in the
I hear
same
you.
way
Thank
that
you.
adults do.
Thank you, Mr. So what you're saying, you do not have issues with that, with short accommodation on that site. You just want to make sure that there is some antisocial behavior plan with that building. Is that correct?
Specifically, so what they're doing is rather than having a manager on site who the children or the teachers could contact, the onus is on the children to be able to they don't have that capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Is
you.
that-
Councillor Pittaway.
Yes, thanks, Tamina. Yeah, so based on that, would you, I think what you're asking, if I'm correct, me if I'm wrong, but the provisions made on one side, which is like sort of like three-man genie,
Yes.
you'd be satisfied if those provisions were made on the other side facing the school?
Yes, so we
In
need...
terms of frosting windows
Yeah,
and
and
those
I'm
things?
talking about things could be like all of those windows. They could put those 45 slats so that they can look forward onto the street but not look to the children, okay?
Okay.
So it would...
So
as
that's
an-
one consideration.
As an absolute
That's-
minimum. And I think the idea of getting the school to plant trees and things are things that
Sure.
can be considered. But actually, the onus is on the unhosted short stay person to provide the management plan,
Yeah.
to provide the access, to provide the privacy, to provide the management. It's not on the school. They can't.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I do understand that.
So I'm saying a lot of this is looking at, well, this is being put in place. Now, what is the school going to do about
Yeah,
it?
no,
It's actually
I-
not the school's responsibility to ensure that it meets the council's regulations
Yeah.
because it's the one-man genie street that is actually applying for this. They
Yeah.
need to provide the management plan. They need to provide, if they can't adequately give a capacity for the children through a phone number and a laptop to be able to make a complaint.
So I
they need
want to
on-site
pick you up on
management.
that point too. There is that obviously if there's children out there playing, I would expect teachers to be out there
Yes.
with them. So and I'll raise your point. So sorry, Tamina, is that obviously you're sort of saying that the same allowances that someone could make a complaint against antisocial behaviour, but a child can't. But you would expect if the child's under school hours, they would report any antisocial behaviour to teachers. So I think it's a little bit, for me, a little bit hard to sort of expect a child. If a child sees something that they're not happy with, they should either go to a parent or a teacher and report that. And then it's incumbent on the teacher or the parent to then obviously raise that concern. So I think sort of saying it's on the child to reach for a phone or something like that when they're in school, I don't know. I think if there was an incident at school a child wouldn't ring the police. They'd go to their teacher and say, I've just seen something, someone's acting behaving strangely on, Mangini Street or the Wellington Centre or something like that.
Councillor Pitaway.
So my question is just, do you think that that's, relevant?
Can I have a right of reply to that?
Of course you can. He's asking you a question, and that's where I was going.
Yeah, I
Please
know,
keep it to questions, not debate.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a combination of factors. So it's the fact that the approved building design has given less privacy to the children compared to all of the other adjoining neighbours. So that in itself is removing privacy, which is adding further risk. Having multiple unhosted short stays in one complex means that we're removing the cohesion of community focus of people who live and reside on the property. That's another concern. The fact that unhosted short stays between 1 and 90 days compared to even a periodic short stay lease, which is going to be sort of months or years and an investment in the community, so that people can turn up one night. Someone could book it under a random email, under a random name, using some kind of form of payment for one night. And I'm just saying something could happen. There's antisocial behaviour that can happen. There could be anything, and I'm not speculating. I'm just saying that all of these things in combination. So if something does happen that is antisocial behaviour and it's one night and it's used where someone who's unvetted, and then the children don't have access to a phone or a laptop to be able to complain about that, and then we go through the process of trying to find that person. There's a huge amount of risk with all of those things in combination. Whereas when you have someone who has a rental agreement, you have to provide ID. If someone owns a property, they have to provide that information. There's rates, there's ways of being able to, if something happens, we have a recourse where we can come back to that person and manage that. This is a very short-term, very fast, high turnover with no accountability for who actually stays on the property, no on-site management, directly adjacent and overlooking a school. It's a combination of all those factors together when this property was specifically designed to provide long-term housing for people with disability, which is exactly what our community needs, because we want that as part of our community. They're planning to only do it for 12 months, but that doesn't, and I know that they've spoken about that, but that doesn't mitigate the risk for the 12 months for the children. I think we need to have there needs to be some kind of further layering on top of that to protect the children, because all of these risk factors accumulate. Why are we waiting? Why are we waiting for something to happen to a child rather than putting every best practice?
I'm gonna cut you off.
Can I just say
there?
One more thing. Best practice for anything in regards to children is preventative, right? In childcare centres, with schools, everything is preventative. This is waiting for something to happen, and I'm not saying that it is going to happen.
Ms Stokes, we've got the idea. I have a question that I'd like to as well, and we do have other people who are registered to do deputations, and we're already over an hour. I have a question. You're talking about the children not having access to a telephone or a laptop at school, and there's not a manager on site. How would a manager on site enable a child to report?
So what I'm saying is, if any kind of property, any kind of business like a bank, a shopping centre, we have security guards that just stand there. Most of the time they're doing absolutely nothing, but the presence of somebody at a property encourages people to do the right thing, because they know that somebody is watching. Community presence, social cohesion, people who are invested in community, the more people who are regularly there. If you're booking online and you know that there's no accountability and you're overlooking a school, you have the opportunity to do something that is antisocial behaviour that you don't have if someone is actually on the property.
Okay. The other question I wanted to ask you is, are you aware, you have referred to that it's the intention of the property was for NDIS housing?
Yes.
Are you aware of how the allocation of that housing happens?
No, I'm not aware.
In terms of how people are allocated NDIS housing. So I guess my question is, if these properties were rented, and with all the changes the state government have brought in to renters' protections and no fault eviction, you can't have a fault. If these properties were to be rented out on a 6-month lease, a 1-year lease, but then an NDIS person was then looking for housing, those housings are no longer available. But if they were short-term accommodation, it's very easy to get that NDIS person into the home. Are you aware of how that works?
So I've specifically put in my proposal that the option of doing a periodic lease, so that allows for a 4-week, so you can say to the person and say that I'm just saying
Okay.
they could do a periodic lease so that it allows people to have temporary accommodation through actually finding a formal lease agreement. I'm concerned that they're unvetted people, that everything is provided online, that there is no one on site. I'm just saying for children, the council should provide additional protections because of the vulnerable nature of children in general in most settings.
Thank you. I'm not taking any more questions, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to the next deputation.
Can I just also quickly say?
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut it off there. We've gotten all the information.
Yeah, I just respectfully ask that I put in a written submission, so I just respectfully ask that you also read that too as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll now call upon Carmen Zolo.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, directors. You've got my statement, I've got my notes, but I'll be honest here, I might just cut to the chase as part of my deputation. With what I was hearing and the questions coming from the councillors and the Mayor, where the first gentleman and even the lady have to defend somewhat the children they're trying to represent. I'm flabbergasted. If a community, if a society does not aim in the first instance to have children's welfare at the forefront, then, well, mate, what else can I say? I'll leave it at that because I don't want to sound. No, I don't want to get upset about this. Sorry, I didn't state my name. Carmen Zolo. I reside in Morley. Now, I don't understand why the onus. There's a question about fencing and the like, and now all the onus is being put on the school. Call the developers, call the owners, get them to do something about the fencing, get them to do something about private screening and the like. Now the teachers have to have more responsibility than what they've already got. I can't believe where the questioning is coming from, and it sounds to me very much like this council or some of the councillors have already made a decision that this is going to get approved next week. I may totally be incorrect on that, but that's what it sounds like sitting over there. It really does. And I'm sorry that I'm starting to sound like I'm lecturing you adult learned people, but I'm sorry, but that's how it sounded to me while I was sitting over there. And as a long-term resident ratepayer and grown my family in this community and having to listen to school people having to defend the school, the children first and foremost, and I congratulate them on that. If this council cannot see what the risks are or the raised risks are in this proposal, then I'm sorry, our City of Bayswater cannot be helped. That's where I'm left, because I haven't been first, front and centre of decisions that are made in this council. But from now on, I don't even think I want to look. You haven't made a decision, but something tells me that you're in favour of this.
Mr. Zolo, I'm going to interrupt here. I did state at the beginning of the meeting that comments to be respectful to everyone in the chambers.
I'm trying to be respectful. Mayor?
Well, saying that councillors are not fulfilling their obligation by having an open mind and that we've already made our decision before the meeting
Didn't say that.
is disrespectful. It's saying that we are not abiding by the regulations in which we have sworn to do.
I don't believe I said that or even
Well-
suggested that.
Well, you did. You said we've made up our. It sounds like we've made up our mind.
Sounds
so
like it. I didn't
I
say you did.
request that you don't continue
Well,
with
I-
that
I-
mind because
I won't.
councillors come in with an open mind.
Well, in reply, Mayor, in respect, Mayor, I'll reply in that I did state right at the start that I may be incorrect in assumptions. And I hope I am. I genuinely hope that I am, because I like to think that people are better. But in any case, yes, this site was approved for specialised disability accommodation, and now it's going to be for Airbnb. Now, a short stay accommodation next door to a primary school, I'm sorry, but that has a very real potential and possibility in raising the risks in attracting pedophiles. Councillor wanted to know what that danger was. Well, I'll name it because no one else has. And we hear a lot of it in society, and unfortunately we hear a lot of what has happened 20 years ago that's coming to the forefront. So maybe we need to raise, I hope that the council in their decision raises the bar on this one and sets a high standard. And not only that, is that any responsibility or onus is put on the developer, the owner of this property, and that conditions for the safeguard of children, community's children. It takes a village to raise a child. Let's remember that. So these children depend upon all of us, whether we know them or we don't know them. Very high they're at very high risk of being untowardly done by. We need to protect these kids, any kids, whether it's at Morley Primary School or any other school, or at any shopping centre or wherever they may be, playgrounds and the like. So I do hope that there doesn't need to be more onus and more responsibility placed on teachers and taxpayers for decisions that are made by politicians. I think that's all I've got to say. Thank you
for
very
your
much.
deputation. I'll just ask if there are any questions. Councillor McDonald.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Carmine, I appreciate your passion and everybody in the community. I guess this isn't a very good forum for us to have debates or explain things or ask you, to discuss logistics. But my question for you would be, hypothetically, if the council rejected this and it went before the state tribunal and it cost, let's say, $50,000 or something, would the community be satisfied that we at least put up the fight, even knowing that potentially it may cost money and we may lose? That's the concern. Because I guess how would you feel in that regard from the community's perspective?
What cost do you place on a child?
No, but I'm just saying, if it went that route, this is the sort of money that it would probably cost.
And it could potentially cost more if it went the other way. I understand. I do understand your question.
Sorry, just one
It's
more.
not about money.
No, of course not. Just one more quick.
Child safety is not about
Of course
dollars.
not. It's not a money question. What I'm saying is, it would be then upheld by the tribunal in the way that the officers recommended, should it go that route. So the concern, I suppose, would be that money would be wasted for something that potentially wouldn't have success.
Yeah. So sorry. So I understand that correctly. So what you're saying is, if council would approve this to ensure that the state tribunal doesn't approve it? I'm sorry?
No, I'll just ask one more quick question because this is meant to be a question for him. But what I mean is, if we went that route, knowing that it was unlikely to be upheld, that we would, be spending that money and spending that time with very little chance of success, would the community prefer that? Would you prefer we go that route anyway? That's the question.
Yes.
Councillor Latta.
Thank you for your deputation, Mr. Zolo. I just wanted to understand what your connection is to this particular item. I know the other people were parents. Are you also a parent, or do you live nearby?
Well, my connection, I'd be upfront, is a personal one, but also of a concerned resident and ratepayer. My three daughters went to Morley Primary School. They're good people, thankfully, and my grandson currently attends Morley Primary School, and I'm pleased to say that there's several teachers there that were also there when my daughters were there. So that's fantastic. But yeah, there is that connection. But this would concern me regardless. But obviously, that's forefront, admittedly. Thank you for your questions.
Any other questions, councillors? No? Thank you very much for your deputation.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I'll now move to Arian Georgie, who is speaking on the same item.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Arian Georgie. I'm the Director of InnoGreen, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight in support of this application for temporary approval of unhosted short-term accommodation at 1 Mangini Street in Morley. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the concerns raised by nearby residents and the school community. We understand why people are protective of the area and take those concerns seriously. Our intention was never to create a disruptive or unmanaged short-stay development. This application relates to an existing apartment building that was purpose-built and approved for specialist disability accommodation under the NDIS framework. The long-term intention remains for the apartments to be occupied by SDA tenants. However, due to a current gap in SDA demand and vacancies within the building, short-term accommodation is being used as a transitional measure to help the development remain financially viable while more SDA tenants are secured. Importantly, since lodging the application, Units 6 and 8 have already been leased to SDA tenants and have been removed from the application entirely. I'd also like to highlight that there is currently very limited hotel and short-stay accommodation options within central Morley area, and Mangini Apartments helps to fill that gap by providing modern, professionally managed accommodation close to Morley Galleria, Coventry markets, local businesses, restaurants, medical services, and public transport. And just on that point, we've also seen quite a lot of demand from people with disabilities who are also requiring short-term accommodation, be it for travel, vacation, or for respite type care. And the Mangini Apartments have been quite popular for that purpose, as there's nothing available at all in Morley hotels, period, let alone accessible short-term accommodation. We've seen strong demand from interstate and international guests who specifically chose Mangini Apartments because of its walkable proximity to Coventry markets and the surrounding eateries and shopping precinct. Those guests are spending money locally at cafes, restaurants, shops and other businesses, which helps support the local Morley economy and aligns with the city's strategic objective of promoting activity centres and attracting investment into the area. We support the officer recommendation and the proposed conditions. The officer report confirms the proposal is consistent with the city's draft STRA policy and that this development is identified as a preferred location for short-term accommodation due to its activity centre zoning, its access to services, and its proximity to public transport. The report also concludes that the proposal is not expected to materially increase traffic impacts beyond normal residential apartment use. So a few points I'd like to emphasise tonight: that this is not a party house operation. There is no intention to maximise occupancy. There are strict operational controls proposed throughout the management plan. Guest numbers are capped at 2 guests in the 1-bedroom apartment and 4 guests in the 2-bedroom apartments under the recommended conditions. Only 1 vehicle is permitted per apartment, with parking restricted to the secure on-site bays. Visitors are limited and must leave before 10 p.m. There are strict quiet hours, no parties permitted, CCTV in common areas, guest ID verification, and a 24/7 complaints contact process. And just one point I'll add to that in terms of antisocial behaviour. So with short-term, unlike long-term rentals, we can cancel the booking immediately. So if the guest breaches any of the house rules by making noise after 10 p.m. or any antisocial behaviour, all I need to do is write them a message on the Airbnb app and I say, you've breached the house rules, your booking's now been cancelled. If they don't leave within 15 minutes, I call the police, and the police on 2 occasions have had to come to the site because of people making too much noise after 10 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday night. Within 1 hour, they've evicted those people. If it's a long-term tenant who is antisocial or even an owner, that process could take many months and you might not get that sort of quick resolution. So we already operate other SDA and short-term accommodation properties throughout Perth, and we understand the importance of having responsive management and neighbour amenity. I also want to highlight that these apartments have already lawfully operated under the 90-night exemption provisions without any complaints being received by the city.
20 seconds left.
Okay. So we believe the officer recommendation strikes a fair and balanced outcome between supporting housing flexibility, protecting the residential amenity, supporting local economic activity, and allowing this SDA development to remain financially sustainable while long-term disability tenants continue to be secured. So for those reasons, we respectfully ask Council to support the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just see if there's any questions.
Sure.
Councillor Pittaway.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. So just listening to a previous deputation, do you accept obviously one side of the building, sort of more on the 3-Mangini side, if we say that, had provisions for, frosting of glass and things like that to sort of shield those, residents next door to it from any, being able to see those people inside.
Yes.
The question is, why was that not taken into account? I know you more be the manager of maybe this.
That's right. From my understanding, speaking with the developer and the owner, it was actually the council who wanted that side to be overlooking the school and the oval for safety and protection of those people. So he didn't actually want it to be permeable fencing and have those windows overlooking the oval necessarily, but that was what was asked at the development application time.
Is there provision within the owner if you ask them that they could make alternative arrangements there for more privacy screening? Is that something that would be considered?
Yeah, I could certainly put it to him. Perhaps like frosting the tops of the windows, if that's on the side that's overlooking the school.
Yeah, just trying to see where the appetite is there for that. If there is, if you know of, the question is, do you know of if there is any appetite? Even though you've said there's no complaints on the property, would there be an appetite from the developer to do anything like that to, remediate some of these, questions and so forth that is coming forward?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be open to it if he thought that would help.
Okay. And obviously the long-term plan is to get more SDA,
Yes.
longer term, people in there, because that's obviously, from my understanding of the building of this development, is for that purpose.
Yes.
So you're saying, if I'm correct, that it's only a lack of people or SDA fulfillments that is why you're turning to
That's exactly right.
short
So
term.
unlike the rest of the property market, in the NDIS housing market, it's oversupplied. So there's too much housing and not enough participants who have the funding from NDIS to live in SDA. So it's only anticipated about 4 to 6% of NDIS participants will be eligible for this type of accommodation funding.
And your company actively seeks out people
We do, yes.
through that to
We're
get
an
them
NDIS
into this long
provider
term.
and SDA provider, so we manage that whole process. And we're also
Do you have any
real
other
estate agents.
applicants at the moment that would be considered for this? No, I know you've
No,
got 2.
no
rented
one. It's quite a long process for the participants to get the funding. It can take anywhere from 12 to 24 months. So we're in discussions with people who are along that journey, but nothing that's firm and confirmed.
So do you envisage full occupancy of SDA within 12 to 24 months?
I don't anticipate we'll ever get full occupancy of SDA. It would be great for the development if we were able to, but just the way that the market is at the moment with so many of these NDIS homes that have been built and not enough participants with the funding, and with the NDIS now wanting to cut funding further, we anticipate there's going to be vacancies permanently for SDA.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you for your deputation. Paragraph 4 in the officer's recommendation talks about a requirement on the property manager to provide a copy of the management plan to all adjoining landowners.
Yes.
So one of them will be the school.
Yes, that would be.
That's the intention, that the school will get the management plan.
That's right, yes. And I believe the officers have recommended which specific lots we need to notify, including the school.
And can the management plan also address the aspect around antisocial behavior that you heard?
Yes,
which
that's
you
a good
addressed,
suggestion.
but
Have an
can it
antisocial.
add a bit about that, how
Yes.
that will be addressed?
Yes. So we have a code of conduct, but we could have a policy specific to antisocial behaviour. I guess because we've got CCTV throughout all the common areas there, if there was ever a report of antisocial behaviour, our team would immediately check the cameras, verify that that is true, and then the guest booking is immediately cancelled and they have 15 minutes to vacate.
Thank you.
We have zero tolerance to any antisocial behaviour at this site.
Sorry, did you just say with the CCTV it is monitored 24 hours?
It's just myself and my assistant Belle who would monitor that, and it's only if it's not active monitoring. It's only if there's been an incident that we would then check the cameras.
Okay, so there could be gaps there.
Yeah, if we
between
haven't
antisocial
been.
behaviour and you receiving a complaint or you being aware of it through CCTV footage.
Yes, although we are, as part of the recommendations, putting in noise monitoring devices throughout the apartment. So if the decibels were to exceed a certain limit, we would get an instant notification.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Sazowski?
Thank you. My question is regarding the guest ID verification. You
Yes.
mentioned in your deputation that you verify the identity of the guests.
We do.
So how is that done?
Yeah, so for every platform except for Airbnb, we check the ID ourselves. With Airbnb, we don't need to because they use facial recognition technology to make sure that your ID and the person who's creating the account match. So for every other platform, they have to fill out a check-in form before they get sent the code. And one of the requirements is that they upload a photo of themselves with their ID so we can check the face on the ID matches the face of the guest checking in.
Any other questions, councillors? Thank you for your deputation.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 13.1, urgent business, access to Roe Estate subdivision, Black Boy Way, Morley, and Alex Jarvis has requested to speak.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Thank you for your time. Alex Jarvis, CLE Town Planning and Design. I'm here with Bill Carmody from Tomahawk Property. Just wish to speak very briefly in terms of item 13.1, just for context. CLE Town Planning did the structure planning for the the Roe Estate on Beachborough Road North. Sort of adjacent to that, if you will, Tomahawk Property and also MNG progressed the road dedication of Crown Reserve 41129, immediately south of the structure plan area. Really just noting that we're in full support of the officer recommendation tonight on this item and just really here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on this item? I have a question. So the City Council resolved to include a condition about the left in, left out when this was considered, and that was recommended to the approving body. And then you've got the approval, WAPC, is it WAPC? Whichever state body it is that's approved it, and this condition wasn't included. Do you know why?
So the condition, if you will, or the provision that the city put on back, I think it was January 2025 on the road dedication, that related specifically to dedicating that road, that lot as road. So, I mean, my understanding is sort of planning adjacent, but you can't actually condition what happens with the road. It's been created as road. Subsequently to that, Tomahawk Property have progressed a subdivision application with the WAPC through DPLH. Probably for context, if I may, probably post the recommendation from the City of Bayswater, Tomahawk Property obviously engaged, reviewed the request from the city to provide the left in, left out. Ultimately, it probably came down to the feasibility to do that. So through the subdivision application, we did engage with DPLH prior to them making the decision to be very transparent with them that we were not seeking to provide the left in, left out onto Beachborough Road. See that as the mechanism as to where that is to be considered. And ultimately where the consideration of need and nexus to provide that is undertaken. DPLH through the subdivision process have ultimately approved that application without the need to provide any access onto Beachborough Road North. So what the City of Bayswater through its officers are considering at the moment is the approval of the engineering drawings, which should correlate to the subdivision approval issued by the Department of Planning. And probably just last point for clarity on that, the actual condition is to be cleared by the City of Swan in consultation with the City of Bayswater's officers.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, councillors? No, thank you very much for your deputation and your patience.
No worries, thank you very much.
So, councillors, we've received 3 written deputations tonight, which have been provided to councillors and published on the City's website, and I will take those as read. So we move on to item 7, which is questions on agenda reports. Please note that some of the reports have confidential attachments, and if you have questions on these, we will need to go behind closed doors. So please let me know, and I will ask you to wait to ask these questions at the end. So the first one is item 10.1.1, which is the Leake Street subdivision. Are there any questions for officers on this report? Councillor Latta.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on something that the deputies spoke about earlier. Can the city perhaps explain what the advertising process is for this kind of matter and how it might differ from the advertising process for a development application?
I'll go to the manager, executive manager.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. It's a public notice period, so not consultation. It's in accordance with the Local Government Act under section 3.58. And from recollection, it was 2 weeks or 10 days, and I'll come back to you precisely on that. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just, I guess, leading on from that, the section 3.58, that's correct. Can you just, can the city just clarify just what those processes may include? Is the deputy referred to no leather drop occurring? I just want to see what those processes, do they include a leather drop, a certain radius, what other things are required under the that section of the Act?
So my understanding is a public notice doesn't require that, but I'm happy to go to the executive manager to confirm that.
Through the Mayor, it's in accordance with the Act, and typically a public notice is advertising in the paper, on the city's website, etc. It does not typically relate to letter drops.
And the CEO would like to add something.
So just to add some further clarity, under that section 358, it allows council to receive an unsolicited bid. As the exec manager advised, it's public notice, and then the process is for council to consider the submissions from the public notice period. And the third component is to have a valuation from within 6 months of that advertising and that consideration by council.
Any other questions on this item? I have a question. I'm not sure who to direct it to. Just in regards to some of the questioning from the deputies about the land use and restrictions on height, building heights in those areas. So can you just confirm that this was residential, zoned residential, and if the building height restrictions apply in this area? I don't know who. I'll go to the director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can confirm it is a residential zone. I'm not aware of any height restrictions, but we'll look into it to see if there are any private arrangements or caveats or something that sits outside of the planning framework. But it's my understanding that there is no height restrictions down to 1 story in the city's planning framework.
Thank you. And so I guess if it's residential, anyone who did their due diligence when buying property would have been able to find that information out.
That's correct. The information is publicly available. The site is zoned residential.
Thank you. Yes?
Just to clarify, the site's dual zoned both residential and parks and recreation. Just to pick up on a question that was raised during deputation, where the car park is located, that is parks and recreation, and through any subdivision will be given back to the Crown as Parks and Recreation Reserve.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? No? All right. We move on to 10.4.1, which is the development application for the proposed paddle courts, additions to Bedford Bowling Club. Any questions on this one? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in the officer's report under external consultation, I just want to refer to the second paragraph there saying that the advertising area was approximated based on a 50-metre radius. Can I just confirm if it was a 50-metre radius or if that's an error in the report?
Thank you. I'll go to the director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll take that on notice and provide that subsequently.
No, thank you. And just as a follow-up to that, on the notice question, if the city could also provide just the total number of residents that did capture as well as part of that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Take that on notice. Any other questions in relation to this item? No, we'll move on to 10.4.2, which is the proposed change of use to unhosted short-term rental accommodation. Any questions on this one? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in reference to something that the last deputy referred to in regards to the previous development application, which understands he mentions the permeable fencing requirement was made by the city as part of that development application. Can I just confirm that that was the case, and if there are any concerns raised at that time of that development application, either from the community or the developer in regards to where that was adjoining that school area, that other deputies have raised that concerns?
They might have to take that on notice, but I'll go to the director anyway.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll take that on notice and come back to you with the answer.
Another question, Madam Mayor, if that's okay. The report mentions that the units have lawfully operated as unhosted SCRA through the 99 exemption provisions, and there have been no complaints received by the city regarding this use. Can I just confirm what time period that falls under, and if the city has checked if complaints have been received through, I believe, the Commissioner for Consumer Protection, which the state legislation may fall under?
I'll go to the director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we haven't received any complaints surrounding the development compliance or operation of the short-term rental accommodation to date at all. And what was the second question to that? Sorry.
I believe that the second part of the question was if complaints have been received via the state legislative framework, the Commissioner for Consumer Protection. I believe there's a complaints process that may be through there.
And can look into that and come back to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the written deputies, I refer to Catherine Kissack, the fifth dot point down, refers to the owners operating multiple apartments as short-stay rentals prior to any community notices being issued or council approval consent. Can I just confirm that if the Airbnbs are operating under 99th exemption period, are they required to have any council approval or community notices being issued? Can I just confirm if that's the case?
I'll go to the director.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the question. So it's statewide, so it's 90 days exemption. You don't need a development approval. In exceeding 90 days, which is what they're seeking, development approval for the site.
And anything that's under 99s as well doesn't require any management plans lodged with the city or anything like that?
I'll go to the director.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Correct, it's exempt from the need for development approval.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just a few more questions if that's okay. Condition 5 refers to the installation of real-time noise monitoring devices. Can I just get some elaboration from the city as to what that involves? Does that report to the city? Does that report to a third party, which then, do we receive any live monitoring ourselves through our environmental health team? Is just understanding the process of that and how we monitor that as well.
I would say no, we don't get it to our environmental health team. That's not our role, but I'll go to the director.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. You're correct. It doesn't come to us. It's managed by the manager or the operator, and that data can be logged and we can look at it. But it's really aimed at helping to address the issues as they are arising, so they can be actively and promptly managed.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? No, we'll move on then to 13.1, access to Roe Estate subdivision, urgent business. Anyone have a question on this? No? Okay. So we'll now move on to the other items on the agenda. I have, Councillor McDonald has a question on 10.1.2, Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee membership, and there are confidential attachments on this one.
There is a confidential attachment.
So if you're talking about the confidential attachment, we have to go behind closed doors.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm actually just asking about why it's confidential, not the actual contents.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, the question was that it was classified under 5.234E, the cybersecurity provision. And I was just wondering if the city can explain why a report about food inspection processes
This
meets the
isn't that
threshold.
item.
Oh,
This is, you've got 10.1.2, the committee membership.
sorry.
Yeah. Did you have a question on that one? No? Okay, sorry, I had that. You did have a question on that one.
Oh, sorry, 10.5.1.2.
No, 10.1.2. No? Okay. So then the next one is 10.5.1.1, which is internal audit food business inspections. Councillor McDonald. And
Thanks,
this is
Madam
a
Mayor. Yeah.
confidential attachment.
Yes, and I won't mention anything about the contents. No, the question was just that the cybersecurity provision was the one used, and I was wondering why a report about food inspection processes would meet the threshold for the city's operations being endangered.
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So just to clarify, the provision that the city has suggested that the council uses to go behind closed doors is that the information, that making the information public would be likely to endanger the security, including cybersecurity, but not just cybersecurity, of any of the local government's property or operations. With internal audit reports, because internal audits often look at the city's vulnerabilities and go into quite a lot of detail about the city's vulnerabilities, we generally make the detailed report from the internal auditors confidential, but you will see that there is a public officer report which provides the findings of the internal audit and the recommendations of the internal audit. So we always make that information public, but we do recommend to the council that the internal audit, the detailed internal audit report itself is kept confidential, because we feel that it has the potential to expose the city's vulnerabilities, which could then be open to misuse.
Just a quick follow-up question. Thanks, Madam Mayor. No, I understand that for sure. And the two medium risks and the incomplete CRM records and documentation issues, but they were all in the public agenda, as you mentioned. Was there anything else that would justify a confidential classification that was in the report besides what was in the public agenda, or is just the detail of it?
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, it's really because of the level of detail that's contained in the full detailed auditor's report is the reason why we recommend that it's dealt with behind closed doors, that part of the agenda, of the agenda item.
Anyone else have a question in regards to this item? No? Then are there any questions on any other items? Because they're the only ones I've been provided in advance. Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick one on 10.5.1.2, which is the fees and changes.
Yeah.
And the question was just, where did we come to the figure of $1,215? So the tribunal has a $105 to $1,200 range, and we've decided to go 170% up in terms of the fees that we're paying for members of the committee. Why did we come to that threshold versus a range?
I think, are you talking about, just to clarify, are you talking about the fees paid to the independent members of the audit committee or of everybody?
committee.
That's a different, that's why I think you had a question for 10.1.2, which is the membership.
I see. Yeah,
That's related to that item.
I see.
So it's 10.1.2, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee membership, which talks about the payments to the independent chairperson and deputy chairperson and deputy member.
Yeah, because there's a few things in that section, 3 or 4. Yeah, apologies. Yeah, and the question was just how do we come to the maximum band from 450 up to 1,200? I guess, was there a reason for it?
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, there was some rationale behind this. So the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal determination still has a provision for the payment of independent members, which ranges from 0 to 450. At the end of the year, they adjusted that determination to provide a specific provision for independent members of Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, and the range in the fee that was payable went from changed to be 105 to the 1215. The reason that we're recommending the maximum amount is that we have done some limited benchmarking on this. It has been difficult because other local governments haven't necessarily set their rates yet, because this is a new provision. But it is looking like other Band 1 local governments are going to be putting in the maximum amount based on the qualifications and the duties and the role and responsibility of those independent members. And I suppose that from our perspective, we are going to be in competition with other local governments to make sure that we are able to retain the services of independent members, which is why we're suggesting that we follow what we think other Band 1 local governments are going to do and pay the maximum for the independent member, presiding member for the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee.
Any other questions, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Just a follow-up question. So is the officer's recommendation to apply the new fee from this term if council approves immediately?
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, if the council approves this, we would apply it from the next meeting onwards.
Thank you. So my question is, didn't those positions, or weren't those positions advertised with the current fee? And those who applied and received those roles knew the specific fee? And if that's the case, why would the city recommend changing it now instead of potentially next term?
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the council did advertise the fee as being 450 when we went out for an expression of interest, but at that time the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal, that was the maximum allowed. The council's policy on payments to independent members currently allows for the maximum to be paid, but because the provisions have changed, the maximum is now not 450 but is 1215, which is why we're bringing this matter back to the council.
Any other questions? Councillor McDonald?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I have a follow-up to the deputy's follow-up. The officer report on this issue mentions that the local government must resolve that the fee represents value for money, but then it doesn't actually make any notes about that in the officer's recommendations. So how did we decide that the maximum amount was value for money? I mean, we should have negotiated a little.
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the council can resolve to pay anywhere within that threshold of 105 to 1215. As the Deputy Mayor has pointed out, we did advertise for 450, so I wouldn't recommend that the council goes below that. We are recommending the maximum on the basis of the responsibilities of the role. I think that the 450 threshold set for independent members was before the legislation changed to require independent members to be presiding and deputy presiding members of this committee. So the responsibilities of the role have changed, which is why I believe the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal have changed the range that can be paid. So it's entirely up to the council what what you wish to pay your independent presiding member and your independent deputy presiding member.
Any other questions on this item? No? So are there any questions on any other items, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I have a question about, with regards to item 10.1.3, transparency update. My question is, so what is recommended here, that some items will not be published because the confidentiality is still relevant, from what I understand. My question is, would the city in future years go back to previous years to still check whether each one that was kept confidential may be now relevant, be able to be published? Or we're doing it just year by year, and what happened in previous years will never be looked again?
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would like to take that question on notice, please, and I will follow up and check.
Thank you. And if I can just add the follow-up so you can check it, Manager. What happened with, because this is not the first time we're doing it. I think last year we did the same thing. And I think we kept some confidential items, but I'm not sure if they were looked at now. So I want to know what happened with all the ones from some point, who's going to look for them. Thank you.
Any other questions on this item?
Sorry, another one. Just technically, once a confidential item becomes public, what actually happens? The item on the website changes?
I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we update the website so that the information is made public. So on the website you can go and look at our minutes, and then there'll be a further attachment under the minutes to say that we've released further information in relation to those minutes, and we provide that information there.
Any other questions on this item? Any questions on any other items? If not, I will close the agenda briefing forum at 9:04 p.m. Thanks, councillors.